South Sudan's famine ebbs, but the situation remains desperate as hunger spreads. How education is driving change in the Maasai warrior culture. And demand for tiny apartments booms as property prices soar. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening, I'm Esther Gitu. You are in for Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. A newly released United Nations-backed food security report says South Sudan is no longer classified as being in a famine, but 45,000 people in Jonglei and Unity states are expected to remain in famine-like conditions, and the situation remains critical. The report says an estimated 6 million people, half of the nation's population, are expected to be severely food insecure in June and July. The report was based on a survey by a working group including government and UN officials. It revealed there is no longer famine in the north of the country, where it was declared in February. The oil-rich country was plunged into conflict in December 2013 as rivalry between President Salva Kiir and his then Vice President Riek Machar exploded into violence. The conflict has triggered Africa's worst refugee crisis, with more than 3 million people fleeing their homes. The African Union is voicing concern about the continued political unrest in Burundi since President Pierre Nkurunziza won a controversial third term in July 2015. The AU ambassador to the United States, Arikana Chihombori-Kwao, tells VOA the organization hopes President Nkurunziza will come to his senses and hold free elections.
I can tell you the African Union is very involved with the situation in Burundi. We do not want bloodshed, and we hope that it does not come to that. We are hoping that the African Union will succeed and have a similar outcome as to what happened in the Gambia. It is an African Union problem, and the African Union is very involved in trying to address that issue. And we hope that President Nkurunziza will come to his senses and allow elections, free elections, to take place.
A senior political official with the United Nations says the security situation in Burundi remains fragile and is calling on international partners to press for inclusive and credible political dialogue in the country. Now, donkey poaching is on the rise in Africa, especially in South Africa, where poor South Africans say they've been forced to sell their precious donkeys at a loss or face having them stolen by poachers who are keen to satisfy growing demand for donkey parts from the Chinese market. Animal rights activists say the situation has escalated to the point where South African donkeys could be wiped out within 2 years. Here's VOA's Anita Powell.
Mpho Mashele's 8 donkeys are her most precious possessions and her family's lifeline. They use them to transport goods in this small village north of South Africa's capital.
We love our donkeys because they're the only source of income. Without them, we will starve.
But her animals are under threat. 4 were killed earlier this year, victims of China's voracious multi-million-dollar trade in donkey hides. Mashele's husband found their mutilated bodies in a neighboring village.
We found pieces of the donkeys. We recognized they were our donkeys because of a white patch on one of their foreheads, and the skins were gone.
South Africa's Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals has, in the last year, confiscated more than 1,000 hides headed for China, says Chief Inspector Mpho Mokoena. Often, she says, they are bludgeoned with hammers or skinned alive. Their hides are then boiled down and made into gelatin, which is believed to treat a variety of ailments. Their flesh is often left behind to rot. Mokoena says that if poaching continues at this rate, South Africa's donkeys will soon go extinct.
In 2 years, there will be no donkeys in South Africa.
Animal welfare activists say they're doing their best to protect these vulnerable creatures. The Highveld Horse Care Unit rescues and cares for threatened donkeys. Inspector Ashley Ness says the skin of a donkey like this one could fetch more than $500 in China. That demand, she says, has driven up the price of donkeys at livestock auctions. But kept alive, they can be used as beasts of burden, as therapy animals, or for their milk. And some, like Chili here, can become beloved companions.
They absolutely do have their own personalities. They really can form such a part of the family.
Activists are urging South Africa to follow the lead of other African nations like Burkina Faso and Niger and ban the trade of donkey parts.
A lot of the countries actually have banned the slaughter and trade of donkeys, which I believe is a lovely, great step in the right direction.
But will it come soon enough to protect these gentle beasts? Anita Powell, VOA News, Meyerton, South Africa.
Belgian authorities are breathing a sigh of relief after foiling a terrorist attack Tuesday in Brussels following a small but fiery blast at a rail station. Eyewitnesses say the suspect shouted the Islamic phrase Allahu Akbar before detonating a small backpack he had carried inside Central Station. Photos posted on social media showed a small fire in the station, which was evacuated along with the main Brussels square and the nearby Grand Place, a major tourist destination. The suspected terrorist later died of the gunshot wounds suffered at the hands of the soldiers. A bomb squad later performed a controlled explosion of an explosive belt the man was carrying. Belgium has been on high alert since the twin suicide bombing at the Brussels airport and the city's Maelbeek subway station killed 32 people in March of last year. In a shocking move, Saudi Arabia's King Salman has promoted his son Mohammed bin Salman to the crown prince, making him next in line to the throne, while also serving as defense minister and overseeing an effort to overhaul the country's economy. The move was announced Wednesday through decrees issued by the state-run SPA news agency. Mohammed bin Nayef, the former crown prince and nephew of King Salman, was relieved of all of his possessions, including the role of interior minister, according to the decree. Mohammed bin Salman, who had been the deputy crown prince, will also now be Saudi Arabia's deputy prime minister. The 31-year-old has been in charge of the Saudi-led coalition fighting on behalf of Yemen's government in a war against Iran-backed Houthi rebels. Saudi state media Wednesday says changes were approved by 31 of the 34 members of the royal family, who make up what is known as the Allegiance Council. King Salman came to power in 2015 following the death of his half-brother, King Abdullah. Britain's Queen Elizabeth formally opened Parliament Wednesday with a speech outlining the legislative goals of Prime Minister Theresa May's government. The package includes a number of items related to Britain's exit from the European Union, a process triggered by a referendum last year and the terms of which are currently under negotiation between Britain and EU members of Parliament, who will vote next week on whether to approve the items laid out by the Queen.
The best possible deal as the country leaves the European Union. My ministers are committed to working with Parliament, the devolved administrations, business and others to build the widest possible consensus on the country's future outside the European Union.
Prime Minister May's party lost its majority in Parliament during a snap election she called for earlier this month, hoping to strengthen the government's position for the Brexit talks. The result has left her seeking partners for a minority government. The Brexit process is due to be completed by the end of March 2019, and due to the complex talks about what to do with issues such as trade agreements and freedom of movement, Britain's session of Parliament is due to last 2 years. The U.S. Congress is moving forward with its look into Russian meddling in last year's presidential election campaign, with 2 hearings Wednesday, one in the Senate and one in the House of Representatives. Lawmakers remain divided over the question of whether President Donald Trump may have taken steps to obstruct justice in the Russia probe. VOA's Jim Malone has our report.
This next round of congressional hearings will focus on the full scope of Russia's efforts to interfere with last year's U.S. presidential election. But one key issue that remains unresolved is whether President Trump himself is under investigation for possible obstruction of justice in connection with the Russia probe. A presidential tweet late last week seemed to confirm news reports that Trump is now a subject of the investigation, with the president adding that he's a victim of a witch hunt. One of the president's lawyers, Jay Sekulow, denied that and said the White House has not received any official confirmation that Trump is under investigation. Earlier this month, former FBI Director James Comey told the Senate Intelligence Committee that the president said, "I hope you can let this go," referring to the FBI's probe of Trump's fired former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. Comey said it felt like a presidential directive.
I don't think it's for me to say whether the conversation I had with the president was an effort to obstruct. I took it as a very disturbing thing, very concerning.
Trump has denied Comey's account of their conversation about Flynn.
Well, I didn't say that. I mean, I will tell you, I didn't say that.
And did he ask you to pledge his
And there'd be
loyalty?
nothing wrong if I did say it, according to everybody that I've read today, but I did not say that.
Legal analysts are divided over whether there is sufficient evidence so far to suggest obstruction of justice, says Paul Schiff Berman.
My guess is that by and large, people in Congress and others will believe Comey's testimony. The question will be whether they think Comey's testimony proves or suggests obstruction of justice.
Some Republicans have come to the president's defense, including Senate Intelligence Committee Chairman Richard Burr, who had this exchange with Comey.
Did the president at any time ask you to stop the FBI investigation into Russian involvement in the 2016 U.S. elections?
Not to my understanding, no.
Special counsel Robert Mueller has not spoken publicly about the investigation or whether Trump is a focus. Jim Malone, VOA News, Washington.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We are also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Also, check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, a look into the rich culture and traditions of the Maasai. Stay with us.
Health news and notes. This is Living Better.
It's the first of its kind, a full exercise facility called Rome Fitness at Baltimore-Washington International Airport. It's inside the security zone and managed by Marcus Malik.
This is for serious exercisers who really want to get a good workout in, relieve some stress and anxiety before they get on a plane.
An airport workout can also appeal to the not-so-serious exerciser, to travelers like Kate Rogers.
My flight was delayed, so taking advantage of the time.
About 15% of air carrier flights were delayed in the U.S. in 2016, and Rome Fitness is part of a trend at airports as they begin to offer health and wellness amenities for yoga, spa users, or massage.
People are going to start making travel plans around the experience, and I think that's the key word there, experience. People want travel to be an enjoyable experience.
Travel expert Francesca Page. I'm Martin Seacrest for VOA's Living Better.
I'm Millar Sega. I'm the host of VOA's The Correspondents, a roundup of the world's top stories with analysis from our dedicated reporters. It's really a conversation the same way that you would bring a friend to your home and ask them what's going on. And our correspondents will do that and answer those questions through their own eyes.
That appears a false choice in more ways than one.
We can't actually put you there, but we can come pretty close. In 30 minutes, we'll show you the world.
The Maasai in Kenya and parts of Tanzania are known for their rich culture and traditions passed down from one generation to the next. They are also known as a society that maintains strictly defined gender roles. On his recent trip to Kenya, Africa 54's Jackson Mvunganyi visited a Maasai household deep in the Kenya's Great Rift Valley. He spoke to two young Maasai warriors about their cultural practices, the role of women in their society, and how access to education is affecting them.
This is Maasai country, home to thousands of Maasai families. The local communities practice nomadic pastoralism and still hold on to other traditions that are unique to their culture. These young Maasai warriors are known as Morans, and they're getting ready to embark on their daily chores. This is part of their traditional role in their community. They also play other pivotal roles in upholding traditional practices like female genital mutilation. This is Amos and his brother Dalton Kuruna.
You defend the community in the face of security. You also withstand the community in terms of problem when there's need for work to be done.
Right.
For example,
building, looking for water, looking after the cows.
Migrating the cows.
Right.
You see? Because now in our community, we don't take cows as an individual property.
It's a community property.
It's a community property.
Dalton Kuruna was forced to quit school. His father needs him to look after the family livestock. His brother Amos continued with his studies and is currently at university. Even though their views on their culture is quite similar, their lives might eventually take separate directions.
I'm underrated in the community.
Yeah.
So you know nothing perspective on the culture.
Yeah.
Because he's more learned than me.
So he's more respected in the culture than you are.
In case
with your college degree, what is the role of the woman in the Maasai culture?
In your culture, we believe in what we call chauvinism.
Chauvinism.
It's only a man who has a voice to do anything he wishes to. A woman is brought only to give birth.
But then when we're driving down here, we saw women with the donkeys looking for water. But that's a very important role.
No, I'm telling the impact of a man to marry. It's only to breed children. But now after bringing home, you now orient duties to
the woman.
Like for instance, fetching water.
Right.
You don't expect a man from the community to fetch water.
So what does the man do then?
The man will look after. We build the homesteads. We go for food.
You go look for food outside.
We cultivate if in any case there's a shamba.
But women are not allowed to cultivate? Women are not allowed to build?
No. We build, we cultivate, we look after. We also defend them in case of anything.
In case there is a war, if you're fighting with another...
And we also finally bring food home.
Amos says that their views often change when they go off to school in areas outside of their homeland and interact with students from different communities.
After now going to schools like Nairobi and Narok, you now interact with the fellows and they tell you the benefit of all this and the side effect of a lady to be circumcised. And now you come back to the community feeling that I should have to marry someone who's not circumcised.
Right. But now so both of you are exposed to the outside world.
I'm exposed, he isn't.
Do you feel this is a culture that needs to be changed?
Yes, of course.
When I go to somewhere like Narok, and somewhere else, we get some people who will tell us the importance of not cutting. So that is what we change there.
Okay. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
It is clear that some younger Maasai men are not keen on maintaining some of these traditions. They are beginning to have conversations about marrying girls that have not undergone FGM. As expected, their parents are none too pleased. Are you allowed to even talk about it, by the way?
Of course, you even talk to your father that I'll be marrying someone who's not second.
Really?
Yes.
And your father is okay with it?
But your father will tell you that when you want to marry, you'll now build your own boma.
You do not be part of the...
You don't belong to the community.
Really? Experts say that one of the most important indicators that there is a change in attitudes towards this tradition is the level at which young men are able to openly talk about it. Amos and Dalton Kuruna agree that there is a need for more conversations in their community on the socio-economic and cultural factors that are behind this practice. For Voice of America, I'm Jackson Vunganyi.
In Wednesday's business report, consumers in Africa are increasingly turning to online shopping as the economy shifts more global. Joining us from the NASDAQ market site in New York with the details is Africa 54 business correspondent Joe Malandrino.
Following the surprise announcements of Amazon.com making a bid for Whole Foods, one of the most intriguing deals in the U.S. markets, I thought we would take a look at 2017 African online shopping trends. And so we turn to IT News Africa. The growth in online shopping trends, along with global delivery systems and the easier movement of funds through international banking systems, means retailers who are locally focused now have the opportunity to serve and communicate with a global audience. Local online ticketing solutions provider WebTickets last year said they had noticed incredible changes in the online retail environment in South Africa, with two of the biggest shifts being the move to mobile and the increased sophistication of the local online audience. The Digital Evolution Index developed by MasterCard reads South Africa is the most developed digital economy in Africa and one of the fastest growing in the world. South African consumers are migrating online for retail purchases as they begin to feel more at ease with the experience and the benefits of an interactive and fast-paced online environment. Now, according to PayPal in 2016, following South Africa, 3 other markets in Africa are also seeing significant e-commerce adoption, namely Egypt, Nigeria, and Kenya. Online has streamed the customer's ability to purchase in many ways from one click to order, easy access to their shopping cart, and simple checkout processes. And this has led to online consumers being less loyal to brands due to an increasingly busy and competitive online marketplace. This is something that we're seeing with U.S. trends as well. In today's on-demand consumer environment, end users expect more, so companies must adopt an omni-channel customer relationship strategy to satisfy new trends and expectations. New technologies, new customer behaviors via voice, chat, email, social network interactions between consumers and companies, that's also constantly evolving and diversifying along with new ways of communicating via smartphones and other devices. The customer is looking for a personalized experience, and retailers will need to deliver in order to stay relevant in an ever-evolving market. From the NASDAQ market site in New York, I'm Jill Malandrino, and this is Africa 54 Business News.
It's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Apartment or prison cell? In some big cities, it is getting harder to tell the difference. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. The economic downturn is raising resentment in Nigeria, even as the government makes efforts to pull Africa's largest economy out of recession. Egypt sends fuel for Gaza's only power plant to help alleviate an energy crisis in the Palestinian-controlled area. Egypt, Christians organize mass iftar meals for Muslims breaking their fast during the holy month of Ramadan in a bid to strengthen ties between both faiths. Finally, Zambia's opposition leader Hakainde Hichilema will go on trial at a high court on treason charges. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
How do you see the world?
I see countries in turmoil.
I see our planet changing.
I see people at peace.
No matter how you see the world, you'll get an unbiased and uncensored view of it on Voice of America. On television, radio, online, and mobile. In more than 40 languages all day, every day. Millions of people tune us in.
How do I see the world? On Voice of America.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. With land prices sky high and dense living the norm, apartment sizes in Hong Kong are getting smaller and smaller. But when your entire living space measures just 18 square meters or less, how small is too small? This parking space-sized studio is part of a growing trend for the so-called micro-flats or micro-apartments that are tiny even by the standards of space-starved and densely built Hong Kong. When they first appeared, micro-flats were mostly snapped up by investors renting them out for above-average returns. In 2017, 30% of the apartments set to be completed will be smaller than 40 square meters. That ratio is expected to rise to 43% in 2018. Next up, China's leading bike-sharing startup Mobike will launch its dockless bike sharing service in Britain. Around 1,000 bikes will be placed in the cities of Manchester and Salford for its initial launch on June 29th. This move marks the firm's first expansion outside Asia and the 100 cities mark with its service covered across the globe. After the official launch, people in these two cities can use the Mobike app to find nearby bikes, which are GPS enabled, and unlock the bikes by scanning the QR code. After using it, users can leave the bikes anywhere and lock it up for the next user without the need to find a docking station, as most shared bikes in Western countries require. And finally, if you want to catch them all, now you might just need a friend. The developer of mobile game Pokemon Go has unveiled a new social raid battle feature that encourages players to buddy up in order to catch the creatures. So-called trainers have the opportunity to team up virtually with others nearby and work together to defeat powerful Pokemon known as raid bosses. The battles are in-game timed events that will temporarily take over Pokemon gyms, places to battle other Pokemon usually located in places of interest. Pokemon Go was the first mobile game to go mainstream in a big way since Candy Crush in 2014 or Angry Birds in 2012. And that's what's trending today. And marking Tuesday's World Refugee Day, the Refugee Food Festival is ongoing in 13 European cities. For 2 weeks, restaurants are being taken over by refugee chefs from countries such as Syria, Afghanistan, Eritrea, and others. Mark van der Wolf reports from Brussels.
Refugee cooks are preparing meals in restaurant kitchens in 13 European cities as part of the Refugee Food Festival. This popular and award-winning eatery in the center of the Belgian capital has been taken over by Syrian cook Abdel Basset.
We are going to make a typical Syrian dish. It's called molokhia, and it's with this herb, molokhia, and coriander and garlic. And at the end, we put on the face of it chicken, and we serve it with rice.
Basset left war-torn Syria in 2015. While working in the food industry, he heard that soon he would be conscripted to the Syrian army. Just like millions of other Syrians, he fled abroad in search of safety. He says his passion for cooking will help him build a new life in Europe.
So when it comes to cooking, like now when I was cooking and I went to the people they were eating and I asked them and they asked me about my life, how it was in Syria. So I think it's a very nice opportunity to come together and share the point of views.
Yannick van Aken is the owner of this restaurant and a renowned Belgian chef. He believes the influences of foreign cooks can improve the already high standards of the Belgian restaurant scene.
It's always nice to see different influences and ingredients and ways of cooking from different parts of the world, and then everybody can learn a little bit more about their traditions and their culture of the countries they're from.
The food festival started as a citizens' initiative in Paris and is backed by the United Nations Refugee Agency. It's hoped the refugee cooks will get employed in the food industry while also increasing cultural exchanges.
So I think the perception of refugees in Europe is very bad at the moment, and also in Belgium. And I think that's why it's very important to support events like these, where refugees actually prepare meals. And this is my way to show my support to them.
80 refugee chefs in 13 European cities have taken over kitchens till the end of this month. Marta van der Wolf for VOA News, Brussels.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune into VOA's evening radio show Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC Monday through Friday. Thanks for watching and good night from Washington.
Welcome to English in a Minute. A cucumber is a long green fruit that is usually eaten raw. Why are Anna and Jonathan talking about the temperature of produce?
Cool as a cucumber.
Did you watch the basketball game last night?
I did. I could not believe that player made a basket at the very last minute and won